And here we have the final bit. This is part 4. Okay, the next one from Terry. I have a D-50 which has lost all its sounds with no backup. Would you be able to help me by copying the factory card onto a 256 RAM card if I send it to you? I would pay reasonable cost for doing this. Right, so this is a message to anybody out there. If I have a card like the factory sounds and you can't get one anywhere else, I am perfectly willing to help you out. So PM me privately on the channel. I will give you details of where to send your RAM card to, etc. And we'll see if we can get the factory settings onto that RAM card and back to you as quickly as possible. Okay. The next one comes from Jim, and it's concerning the MX-1. There seems to be a lot of questions and answers around the MX-1 actually. And it says, thanks for the great setup vid. Quick question: if I have a unit in surface mode to use with Ableton, am I able to record the effects back into Ableton? And if so, how do I do that? Yeah. In short, the answer is you can't. So the effects on the MX-1 as it currently is configured, the effects are put on post-signal rather than pre-signal. So when the effects are put on, they're put onto the output side, not onto the input side. So when you're using it as a surface, you can't actually reroute the effects, or I've not found a way of rerouting the effects back onto your DAW, apart from effectively taking an output from the MX-1 with the effects on, an audio output that is, and routing it back in. You can do that, but the problem you will then have with that is you're going to have a slight latency between the rest of the tracks in your DAW and the tracks that you've just sent the effects out on. The other thing about doing it that way, of course, is the effects will be applied to all channels in a mix rather than a single channel as an effect on a channel. I hope that sort of makes sense. Okay, the next one comes from Alexander, and it's to do with the FB-01. Now, I love the FB-01. It's a great source of FM sounds, especially the strings. The strings on the FB-01 are great. I use them quite a lot. And the question is, does this have a drum patch? In simple answer, no, it doesn't. It has drum sounds, but it doesn't actually have a drum patch where each key is effectively matched to a drum sound. So the FB-01 doesn't really have that. It more has a steel drum, a snare drum and a timpani, etc., but not the full kit. Okay, this is an interesting one. I get asked this quite a lot actually. From user 3333. Hello, why do you have the System-8 on your to-buy list when you already have the beefier Jupiter80? A good question. That's the same as the System-1 on their list of things to get when they already own a System-8. So, I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways. First of all, I bought the System-1 first. And when I bought my System-8, I really thought I was going to sell the System-1. But what I found is that I tend to use the System-1 for different things. So I will quite often load the System-1 up with bassier or mono synth sounds and use it for that sort of thing when I'm playing, rather than have it on another keyboard. And it's quite nice. It's the sort of compact range of the keyboard there is quite nice to play those sort of bass riffs, or to play a lead riff on very, very simply, very quickly. So that's the reason why I retained the System-1. I didn't sell it, but as I said, I fully intended when I bought my System-8 to sell the System-1. That was the intention. The other thing about it is, and when you're talking about the System-8 to the Jupiter, there is no contest. The Jupiter is just a machine in a class of its own. The System-8 is something different, and I bought the System-8 predominantly for the plug-out situation where you can actually, you've got those faithful recreations of the Juno and the Jupiter, which means I don't actually have to fiddle around with the Jupiter80 to recreate those sounds, because those sounds are already being created for me, and they've been faithfully recreated, and then I can fiddle around with those sounds as a starting place. So that's the reason why I kept the System-8 and I've kept the Jupiter. Although having said that, I wouldn't get rid of the Jupiter anyway, and I don't think I'll get rid of the System-8 either now. The other reason why I tend to have lots of keyboards, and people always say this, you know, why have you got so many? Well, it's like this. I tend to play my keyboards live when I'm recording, or I am sending MIDI data to the keyboard to play the track live. Now, one of the things I realised in the past is that when you're doing that, if you have a single keyboard, you have to effectively layer those sounds, and you don't have enough outputs on the keyboard to be able to assign each one of those sounds to a separate output. And therefore what you're doing is effectively coming up with your combined mix off the keyboard itself, rather than coming up with the combined mix at the desk. Okay, by having lots of keyboards, which is what I have, and lots of modules, which is what I have, it means I can independently route the sound to a module and then onto the desk, and I can do the final post-production on the desk rather than doing the post-production or trying to do the post-production in multiple layers of the keyboard itself. And it also allows me to just, you know, I can quickly flip around with the volumes on that sort of stuff. It also means I can independently record the output of the keyboard into an audio interface and take it in that way. For each one of the tracks that I'm playing, so I can get a different audio interface with a completely clean signal rather than having to sort of try and strip out the other sounds that may be coming off the keyboard. That's my preference. That's why I do it, and I started doing it that way after watching several videos. And one of the videos, well, there's two actually, if I'm honest. One was by the Finnish guy Kibu, who I've mentioned on the channel numerous times. I love his work, but he has lots of keyboards, and he does exactly the same. He can, and because he plays his live, he can quite quickly at the desk just nudge the volume up or nudge the volume down of an individual track that he's playing or he's sequenced. So if he wants to enhance the lead, he can just push the lead synthesizer up, or he can pull down the volume of another synthesizer. And the other video that I saw, and this is going back quite a while actually, was Jean-Michel Jarre. Okay, another one of the inspirations I have, and he does exactly the same. He plays lots of different keyboards, or lots of sounds of different keyboards, and independently tracks them, for the same reason that he can independently adjust the volume or apply effects to a specific track, rather than trying to layer or unlayer or apply effects on a keyboard. Hope that makes sense. And the final one for this session, from Botany. Hi, where did you get your BX16 AC Adapter? Was it the Japanese version? So no, it wasn't the Japanese version. It actually came up on eBay, if I'm honest, and I don't think the person who was selling it actually knew what they were selling it, because it had Boss adapter written on it, and it was European voltage. It was 230 volts, so I snapped it up and bought it. The problem with the BX16 is it is plus or minus. The adapter is a bit weird. A, the socket size is weird. B, the voltages are a bit weird. I think it's plus or minus 15 volts, which is a bit unusual. And they're like gold dust. I don't know what's happened to them, but somebody must be breaking these mixers up, because they are very old now and they're starting to get to the end of their serviceable, if they haven't been treated particularly well. So my advice really is, if you're looking for this sort of stuff, it's eBay. Set up a search, put some keywords in, and then just keep plugging away until you see one come up and go for it.
So this is the point in the video where I turn around to you and say, if you enjoyed the contents of this video, please give it a thumbs up. It allows other people to find this content more easily that you have enjoyed. I'm sure by now, if you didn't like the content of the video, you've probably given me a thumbs down, but I'd prefer if you didn't. If you'd like to be notified about when I post additional content to this channel, somewhere about here should be the subscription icon, so please click on there and subscribe to the channel. Over here should be other content that you may enjoy that I've already done or posted to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again.